Tonight, a matter of conscience. A Holyrood committee says MSPs should be free to vote as they choose on assisted dying. We hear from two women on opposing sides of the debate.
It was just about waiting, and that waiting was the most traumatising thing possible.
I'm glad that the law at the time protected me against myself.
Also making the headlines, out of work. Workers at Grangemouth tell STV News they're devastated and don't know what the future holds as they leave the oil refinery for the last time. In sport, no red carpet treatment. Champions Celtic don't expect a guard of honour from Rangers at the weekend.
Me and my friend were trying to build a sandcastle that can fit quite a lot of people in it.
And as the weather hots up, Scots are cooling down at the beach. I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. A landmark proposal to legalise assisted dying in Scotland is a matter of conscience, and individual MSPs should be free to vote as they choose on the matter. That's according to a Holyrood committee. The vote next month will be the third time the Scottish Parliament has considered the move, which would allow adults with a terminal illness to seek help to end their life. MSPs are being urged to scrutinise whether the proposals strike the right balance between providing choice and protecting vulnerable groups. Our chief reporter, Sharon Frew, has been speaking to two women on opposing sides of the debate.
She was a force to be reckoned with, I would say. I think anyone that knew her, she was determined, she was very independent, just the most wonderful human being. She was the most important person in my life.
For Lucinda, the trauma of losing her mother has been compounded by what happened during the 59-year-old's final days.
She absolutely said if there had been an assisted dying bill or there was a way in which she could die with dignity, that she wanted that, no questions asked, and mainly for the family, mainly for myself and my grandma, so that we wouldn't have to go through the suffering that we did.
Julianne, who lived with a rare brain condition for 7 years, had a catastrophic hemorrhage earlier this month. Doctors at Edinburgh Royal Infirmary told her family there was no hope of recovery. For days, her daughter and elderly mother remained by her bedside as life support was removed and her body shut down.
The most distressing thing was the fact that we were there for 3 days, day and night, sleeping there for no reason. You know, she was not alive, yet we had to witness the most horrific things that were happening to her body. And I slept for 2 hours over 3 days, holding her hand, asking the nurses, is there anything more we can do? We got the palliative care team in. They said there's literally nothing more they could do. It was just about waiting. And that waiting was the most traumatising thing possible.
As a former intensive care nurse, helping families like Lucinda's was part of Michelle Moffat's daily working life. When a freak accident left her paralysed in 2019, she was forced to retire. In constant pain and deep depression, the mother of 4 then signed up to travel to the Dignitas assisted dying facility in Switzerland.
I felt like I was a financial burden in the family. I felt like I was just a physical burden. And I told my husband, he was so angry. His exact words, he went, "How could you do this to us?" His reaction just kind of shocked me to the core, that he was so horrified. And it's not like that. I was fine. Obviously I wasn't. It was a long process of being able to kind of come to terms with accepting things and learn how to navigate life. I'm glad that the law at the time protected me against myself.
After scrutinising the evidence and views from both sides of the debate, Holyrood's Health Committee has declined to make a recommendation on how MSPs should vote next month. Today's report highlights a number of concerns still to be addressed should the assisted dying bill progress. These include issues around coercion, eligibility criteria and the provision and quality of end-of-life care.
When we're alive, we can make our own choices. Why can't we make the choice about our own death? I understand there are arguments against, for sanctity of life, but when someone is terminally ill or has no chance of recovery, you don't have a life. I know there are safeguards that are being put in place and proposed, so there's going to be kind of 2 doctors in some cases that have to sign off on whether someone's able to go forward with assisted dying. So it's not as though it would just be a free-for-all.
Whatever side of that argument you fall on, we don't want people to suffer, we don't want people to be struggling, but I think that there's a difference between ending someone's suffering and ending somebody's life. For end of life, we need a good focus on good quality palliative care. We need to step up the things that are supposed to be in place already, so that this doesn't become an easy option to reduce the burden on the NHS.
MSPs are due to vote on the bill on the 13th of May. Sharon Frew, STV News.
Redundancies have begun after Petro-Ineos announced the end of a century of oil refining at Grangemouth. We've been speaking to one of the first to face redundancy. Andrew Peterson left work at the refinery today for the final time and says it's devastating. His father and grandfather worked there before him. Now he fears he could have to move abroad to find work. He's been speaking to our political editor, Colin Mackay.
So I worked for 8 years at the Hydrocracker complex here, just beside that flare stack and just to the left of the cooling towers.
In a letter to staff, Petro-Ineos described ceasing refining at Grangemouth as the end of an era. For workers being made redundant today, it feels like much more than that. Andy, you went to work this morning. Tonight, you don't have a job. How does it feel?
I would say there's a kind of flurry of emotions. I'm a little bit excited about what's to come next, but I'm a little bit terrified that I don't have anything lined up.
And so what will you do now?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't have anything lined up. I was one of the first batches of people to leave. There's more to come in May and June. I don't know, there's no real equivalent job near here. We're just going to need to go where the jobs are.
Project Willow came up with options to transform the refinery site into a hub for green technology. MyAlgae could be one of the first companies ready to move.
Takes the byproducts of the whisky industry and uses that to produce an omega-3 product that goes into aquafeed and pet foods. Effectively, we're able to reduce the amount of fish that we take out of the sea through a biotechnology process. So for every tonne of algae that we produce, we save about 30 tonnes of fish. That's one of the reasons we were Earthshot finalists.
Petro-Ineos staff got a redundancy deal of 18 months' pay. MyAlgae hopes to employ some of them before they've spent it.
Over the first phase, we're looking at creating about 100 jobs, which is, I think, for our side, really exciting. We feel good about being a part of that transition.
And would that be something that the people who are losing their jobs now could look at potentially in the near future?
We certainly think so. We're retraining people out of Grangemouth already, and the processes are built in a way that allows us to do that. And so we're certainly looking to be starting to hire towards the end of the year.
It was a bit of a shock when Petro-Ineos announced the end of refining yesterday, but it's not the end for Grangemouth. Now it's time for the governments to deliver the millions they've promised to help create new jobs to keep Grangemouth working.
And Colin, there have been clashes over the closure of a Grangemouth refinery in the Scottish Parliament. What were they saying?
Well, when I was speaking to Andy Peterson in Grangemouth earlier on, he was telling me he was fed up with politicians. Why? Because he thinks they've been treating this like a political football. But on the very day that he and many of his colleagues are losing their jobs, the debate here in the Scottish Parliament felt more like political ping-pong.
The UK Labour government, within months of taking office, committed £200 million of investment for Grangemouth's industrial future. Unfortunately, that contrasts with the Scottish Government.
The Grangemouth refinery closure means 430 workers have been made redundant, and my thoughts are with every single one of them and their families who've been let go by Petro-Ineos.
I am deeply concerned that the closure of refining at Grangemouth is being played by SNP politicians as a constitutional game.
This is not about pointing fingers. This is about delivery as quickly as possible of jobs and opportunities that, if Grangemouth has been for generations a key part of our industrial heritage, it must be the centre point of our industrial future.
Now, in her statement, Kate Forbes said that there had been 66 inquiries to Scottish enterprise from companies looking to relocate or set up in Grangemouth. But there is some more bad news tonight, with a consultation on the potential loss of another 140 jobs with contractors at Grangemouth. There'll also be some other job losses, a knock-on effect at Ineos. Unite the Union say this is the domino effect. They expect more jobs to be lost.
Colin at the Scottish Parliament, thank you. Scientists in Edinburgh say they've made a major breakthrough in the fight against Alzheimer's. For the first time ever, they've shown how a toxic protein linked to the disease can degrade human brain cells. Their cutting-edge technology allows them to experiment using live human brain tissue taken during routine surgery. Louise Scott has more.
This may be a small lab, but the breakthroughs they are making within its four walls are huge.
The first thing that happens is the piece of brain arrives with us in a taxi in this fantastic device here, as you can see.
Live brain.
That's live brain. So what we have, as you can see, is an oxygen cylinder, and that's pumping oxygen into this solution called artificial cerebral spinal fluid. So it's a type of liquid that keeps the brain in exactly the same environment that it would be if it was still inside your skull. What we then do is we go over to Soraya here, who's working on embedding this piece of tissue and cutting it into really, really thin sections. These slices we then bring over to Rob here, who, as you can see, is he's plating them into these little dishes. These little dishes have a membrane that means the piece of brain can sit on top and survive for several weeks. We can take these little dishes and we take them into the incubator, and they're now kept at 37 degrees, which is the same as body temperature, and nestled away until we're ready to start our experiments.
The process is revolutionary in itself, the ability to keep human brain tissue alive. But it's the potential it gives for groundbreaking discoveries, including the proteins linked to Alzheimer's, that makes it so significant.
We've now developed a system that means that we can actually look at how A-beta damages synapses, these connections between cells. It's in a system that's in a dish. It should be easy to apply drugs and different things from different labs to see if we can stop that happening.
The research is funded by the James Dyson Foundation and Race Against Dementia, the charity set up by Formula One legend Sir Jackie Stewart after his wife Helen was diagnosed with dementia in 2014. The family's goal is to find a cure.
And that's what shocked me when I found out that there was no cure for Helen. Now, her condition has deteriorated enormously, and actually, in the last week or 10 days, it's been even worse again. It's a big challenge that we've taken on. It's going to stay on.
The team believe that their pioneering method of preserving brain tissue could help accelerate drug testing and bring them closer to a cure. Louise Scott, STV News, Edinburgh.
A new group is being tasked with avoiding preventable deaths in custody. It comes after a fatal accident inquiry found the deaths of Katie Allen and William Lindsay at HMP Polmont could have been avoided had it not been for a catalogue of failures. The Scottish Government says the Justice Secretary Angela Constance will lead an accountability board to push through the recommendations. Remote prescribing of cosmetic injectables is set to be banned within weeks in a landmark move to better protect patients. From the start of June, anyone seeking treatment such as Botox or fillers must have a face-to-face appointment with a medical professional. Those who have been campaigning for the restrictions say it's a significant step forward in patient safety.
I think it was about 2012 that the General Medical Council actually outlawed remote prescribing for doctors. And as nurses who are prescribers and who are looking for better patient safety, we have been campaigning all of that time for this to happen. So it's brilliant news. We're really, really pleased that it's putting patients first.
A 33-year-old man has pled guilty to the murder of a woman at her home in Glasgow. Maxine Clark was found by emergency services at the property in Ridley in June last year and later died. Mark Keel has admitted murdering the 36-year-old and will be sentenced at a later date. Care inspectors say they have serious concerns about standards at a young people's care home in Airdrie. Allenvale House has been given an improvement notice, with issues such as the storage of medication and complaints procedures being identified. In response, the operators Lovat Care say they've had no complaints from social workers or families and are making a formal complaint about the Care Inspectorate to the Scottish Government. Protests against Donald Trump have been drawn on the sand near the US President's Turnberry golf course. The environmental group Greenpeace say activists raked a giant portrait of the President onto the beach, which was half the size of a football pitch. The protest came as Donald Trump marked 100 days of his second term in the White House. Known for being one of the most run-down areas in the west of Scotland, demolition of the Cluny Park estate in Port Glasgow has finally started. The area has been all but abandoned for decades, and the council recently ordered the last few residents leaving the derelict buildings to leave for good. Raheem Cham reports.
The final moments of these tenement flats that have stood for more than a century. Contractors have started the first phase of the demolition exercise, ripping apart the local church.
Right, so phase one of the demolition works is going to consist of this block, the entire leg there, the front face of the building, and the leg back down the other side, and one leg of the second building, and it will stop at the low down point at the corridor. It will be separated there, and then the rest of that building will be out in phase two for demolition. So also in phase one is the old school building, the church building, and the resource centre behind the school building. So that's also included in phase one of the demolition package. It's the kind of work we do day in, day out, so it's quite a straightforward project for us. It's a project the locals have been waiting for quite a long time to see this demolished, because it's obviously became quite derelict and run down over the last few years.
Built to house workers during the heyday of shipbuilding on the Clyde, Cluny Park was once a bustling part of Port Glasgow. After falling into the hands of private landlords, it became derelict wasteland, gaining the nickname Scotland's Chernobyl.
What was once a desirable place to live is now a thing of the past. The 6-month demolition exercise will see a third of the buildings knocked down, producing at least several thousand tons of waste. A regeneration project is expected to follow, and hopefully new housing will be erected, bringing this place back to life.
Cluny Park saw a lengthy standoff between Inverclyde Council and residents over leaving the dangerous buildings. The council says more power should be devolved to local authorities to deal with sites such as this.
I think the real lesson for Cluny Park is that councils don't have sufficient powers to try and address the issues around private housing, and that's meant we've had a long process, a very tortuous process, a very costly process to get to the point we are today. And I think the Scottish Government and the Scottish Parliament needs to look at Cluny Park and learn some lessons, and look to see whether councils can be given more powers under the law to take action earlier than we've been able to take.
In the meantime, the works continues, erasing the history of a once much loved and now much neglected part of Inverclyde. Raheem Cham, STV News, Port Glasgow.
Now Ronnie's here with the sport.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Spring Sale.
Good evening. Luke McCowan says Celtic will be heading to Ibrox on Sunday for the Old Firm derby, looking to show why they are champions. Despite back-to-back defeats in the fixture, the midfielder doesn't believe they have a point to prove against their city rivals. And McCowan isn't expecting Rangers to roll out the red carpet and give Celtic a guard of honour.
I think he meant that there, get the smile, didn't
I did, aye. Getting used to the champions' attire. Luke McCowan sporting Celtic's 4-in-a-row merchandise after another league title was wrapped up last weekend. But the midfielder admits all talk of titles have been shelved ahead of the final Old Firm derby of the season after tasting defeat in the previous two meetings.
I don't think it's really a point to prove. I mean, we're the most consistent team in Scotland, that's why we go and win the league. But I think it's just more about showing to ourselves that it's not about us winning the league last week, it's about each performance that's coming along with that and showing that we are champions wherever we go, regardless it being Ibrox on Sunday or it being Hibs at home or anybody. It's about putting on performances, and we've got targets in our season that we want to hit. We've got other records within the season that we want to break, so that's the goal now, and we just need to go and show that.
It is your first game since winning the league. Do you expect a guard of honour at Ibrox?
No. No, not at all. But that's just how it is, isn't it? So I don't know how it would be if it was on the other foot. We'll never really know, I don't think. But we'll wait and see what happens.
The 27-year-old admits he's still pinching himself, having been crowned champions with his boyhood club after his late deadline day move from Dundee.
Sitting on August 30th, I wouldn't have told you that. Probably up to 9:30 at night on August 31st, I wouldn't have said that was going to happen either. But nah, it's, as I said, it's been amazing. I can't even fathom that I'm in this position now. It's just about being motivated to keep myself going and be a part of the squad and make as big an impact as I can. So no, it's been, as you said, a dream start.
David Martindale believes he would prove doubters wrong by returning Livingston to the Premiership at the first time of asking. The Lions were relegated at the end of last season after finishing bottom of the table, but going into the final game they sit level on points with Championship leaders Falkirk behind on goal difference. Livingston host Partick Thistle, whilst the Bairns face bottom side Hamilton on Friday night.
I don't think there was anybody had us in win the league. Anybody, it was all United, Falkirk, Partick Thistles. So I don't, and Raith Rovers at that point, to be fair. If we were in a relegation battle, there'd have been a lot of the critics saying I told you so. But I know what I can do. I know my capabilities. I know the staff's capabilities.
I had my chance and I blew it. Those are the words of John Higgins after he was agonisingly beaten in the quarter-finals of the World Snooker Championships in a thrilling final frame decider. The Wizard of Wishaw battled back brilliantly from 12-8 down against Welshman Mark Williams to force a last frame shootout. Higgins needed this blue to win the match but missed, and Williams cleared up to secure his place in the semi-finals at the Crucible Theatre in Sheffield. Golf, and Robert McIntyre says he's eyeing a maiden major victory as he prepares to defend his Scottish Open title. It comes as freshly crowned Grand Slam winner Rory McIlroy announced he'll be joining the field at the Renaissance Club in July from the course. Here's Jamie Borthwick.
Yes, the Scottish Open returns here to the Renaissance Club in East Lothian, and so too does the star-studded field, including newly crowned Masters champion Rory McIlroy and the reigning Scottish Open champion Robert McIntyre. McIntyre, of course, fulfilled a lifelong dream when he won his home Open here last year. He's now competing in America and chasing a first ever major title.
The field that we get every year is top drawer. It's as good as we get outside the majors. But as a Scot, you're going there trying to win your home Open, and thankfully I've got that now. I think my priority changes. When I pitched up at the Scottish Open, it was all about winning the Scottish Open. Whereas now I feel like I've got that, so now I can look at the week later at the Open. Taking nothing away from the Scottish Open, but I can almost prepare better for the Open because the monkey's off my back.
Well, there have been some thrilling finishes around this course in recent years, and European Tour pro Grant Forrest believes that his home course here, just outside North Berwick, can deliver another memorable tournament.
It's brilliant for the event, brilliant for the sport, and it's what people want to see. And then obviously to have Bob winning last year, you know, Scottish guy, and after sort of being pipped by Rory the year before, it was it was like it was written in the stars, wasn't it?
More than 70,000 spectators will flock here, hoping to witness more history when the Scottish Open gets underway on July the 10th.
To rugby, and after signing a contract extension with Edinburgh, Harry Patterson hopes a raucous home crowd can help secure their place in the final of the Challenge Cup this weekend. Sean Everett's side welcome English Premiership leaders Bath to the Hive Stadium on Saturday afternoon, looking to progress to their first European final in 10 years.
And I think we're sold out. That should be great. I mean, the crowd was amazing at the Sharks game, which was sold out a few weeks ago. So hopefully we can, do one better than that and get to the final in Cardiff.
We do perform well at home. We know what we're up against, and the best team in the English Prem. So, massive game for us to measure ourselves against the best. We're happy to take the underdog status into this game. But yeah, we've put in some good performances at home, and we can take a lot of confidence out of the last 3 games that we have played at home.
Finally, Scotland's most decorated female basketball player, Erin McGarrican, says she won't allow herself to think about the end of her career only on Caledonia Gladiators playoff finals. The captain who inspired the creation of the women's team announced last week she'll retire at the end of the season. Having already lifted the Super League basketball trophy, McGarrican is hoping to guide her side through the playoffs, starting with the quarter-finals this weekend.
Nervous excitement and try not to think too much about it being potentially a terminal game. When we prepare for a game, it's the tactics, how we're going to approach the game, and that takes up a lot of time and attention. There's not much room for thinking about emotions or feelings or the what ifs. So just thinking about the tangibles, and then I'll celebrate the one after the game.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Spring Sale.
A lot of sport in the sport desk.
There was a lot. You got
their money's worth. You did.
Rory, thank you. Sean, how's the weather?
A clear start makes way for a day of ancient discoveries. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. Warmest day of the year so far for eastern parts of the country. Temperatures getting into the mid-20s. Delightful enough for us, mind you, into low to mid-20s, many central parts. This little weather front, though, does bring a wee bit of a change in. During tonight, we'll see outbreaks of rain coming into the northwest. A mild one for most of us, around 11, 12 degrees Celsius, but slightly fresher air coming into the northwest by the end of the night. Now, if you remember from your geography lessons, here you go, you've got that blue weather front, triangles. It is a cold front, as its name suggests. Yes, it brings in colder air. Now, it's not going to be cold tomorrow, but all it means is it brings in fresher air compared to today. So of course the weather map for today had 20s to 23s on it. Tomorrow we're more like 15 to 17. Drier, brighter weather in the afternoon. 15 to 17, not as high as today, but it still hopefully shouldn't feel too bad. Feeling a little bit fresher though, certainly on the west coast and across Argyll and Bute and the Highlands. Now, if you've got plans during the holiday weekend, for most of us it is looking dry and bright. So Friday, Saturday and Sunday, there's just a chance of a few showers around at times, but generally a lot of dry, bright weather. But the one thing you will notice through the weekend is we go from those 20s we've had today, temperatures just coming down a wee notch or two. It looks as if for the northeast coast we'll be down to highs of about 7 or 8 degrees on Sunday, but for us we're still around 13 to 14. Not feeling too bad in that sunshine. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Well, as we heard from Sean, it's been the hottest day of the year and people across the country have been out enjoying it. Our reporter Lewis Mickey has been to Aberdeen and Fife, where factor 50 has been in high demand.
20-plus degree temperatures in Fife and Silver Sands Beach in Aberdour is a popular spot to soak it up or to cool down in the sea.
It's amazing. It's 5 minutes along the road, so yeah, it's really good to be able to just jump in the car and head along and yeah, just spend the day.
You building sandcastles?
I can the my castle.
How's the water? Is it cold?
Yeah, the water quite cold.
Try to get a tan.
Yeah. Do you think you're successfully going to get a tan today?
Probably not. We live in Scotland.
Me and my friend were trying to build a sandcastle that can fit quite a lot of people in it.
We've got hot dogs, we've got hamburgers, we've got chicken nuggets and whatnot.
If sweet treats are more your thing, ice cream has been in high demand.
Well, I mean, it can be non-stop, you know, I can have a queue for hours on end and then stay open a bit later while you take it while you can get it. You know, like I say, if next week rains, I'm standing here all day twiddling my thumbs.
As is typically the case in Scotland, you've got to do what this lot are doing and make the most of it while it's here, because forecasters say that next week it's going to be a tad cooler, and in May we could even see a cold snap. So go and make the most of it while you can.
I'll be back to the jerseys and the tracksuits again, eh?
Red, but aye, going to go in the water, play some football, get a good day. You expecting a tan? Oh aye, definitely. This beach is set to host a nudie Duke on Saturday morning. Unfortunately for those taking part, it won't be quite as warm. Lewis Mickey, STV News, Aberdour.
Our cameras definitely will not be there to see that. From all of us here, thank you for watching. Have a good night.